Hello friends, how are you all? This is Lakshya Roda and welcome back to my channel. So guys, in this video I'm going to share some real-time DevOps interview questions. So let's get started. So usually in DevOps interviews, interviewers don't ask like some theory-based questions. They don't focus on that. They usually focus on that questions which can check your real-time knowledge on DevOps. So let's get started. I have a list of these 10 questions which are mostly asked, and even these questions were also asked. Some of them were also asked from me in my interviews. So the first question, what is the most important thing DevOps helps us to achieve? So as you all know, DevOps is all about your continuous integration and then your continuous deployment. So most important thing DevOps helps us to achieve is the faster software delivery to your customers. So DevOps is not a technology, it is not a tool, it is a best practice to deliver your software and code changes to your customers as quickly as possible. So in DevOps, like if you want to install any package on any one server, then you can do it easily. If the same task you need to do on 100 servers, then you cannot do it manually. Obviously you need some automation tool. So in that case, we DevOps come into play. This is one of the scenarios. DevOps is used in every company nowadays, in almost every scenario. This is one of the scenario which I am telling. So it helps us in faster software delivery and code changes to production. So this is how you can give the answer to this question, and you can further elaborate on that. So, and next is, are you more dev or ops? So this answer will totally depend upon you. On the basis of the work experience you can answer. If you have coding experience, if you are from a developer background and you're good at coding, then you can say that you are more into dev side. Else, if you are more into operations, like if you came from sysadmin role, Linux admin role, then you can say that you are more into ops side. And also it also depends upon the knowledge that you have. If you have knowledge, like if you are good in programming like C Sharp, Python, .NET, then you can say that you are more into dev side. So this is how you can answer this question. And the second is, which are the top DevOps tools and which tools have you worked on? So interviewers generally ask this question also to check real-time knowledge and to know how well you're comfortable with all the DevOps tools. So in DevOps, we have various tools like starting from version control till monitoring. Version control like Git, Subversion, these are the version controlling tools, and many other are there. Mostly companies prefer Git and Subversion, especially Git. So you can get familiar with one of the tools, you can learn the tools on your own, you can watch YouTube videos. And for continuous integration, mostly companies ask Jenkins, which is basically a continuous integration tool. And if you're working on Azure, then obviously you should have hands-on experience in Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps or VSTS. VSTS was the old name and Azure DevOps is the new name. For deployment, you can say like you are using Jenkins only, or you are creating build and release pipelines in Azure DevOps only. For monitoring, you can say Nagios. Nagios is a monitoring tool, and many other monitoring tools are there. So it all depends on the experience and on the knowledge that you have on the tools. And if you are having some knowledge on containerization or some automation tool, containerization means like some Docker is a great containerization platform that you can say if you have knowledge, or and if you have implemented that tool in your project, then only you should say. And Ansible, which is basically a configuration management tool, like we have you can say it is an infrastructure as code tool. Like it is a way of automation. You can run playbooks in Ansible and you can deploy various resources on cloud using Ansible. So be careful while you are answering this question, because if you answer like you know Docker and in real time you haven't worked, or you are not having any real time knowledge, then you might be in some trouble. So better to have knowledge first and then you can answer in the interview. And one more tip, like try to incorporate these tools in a proper workflow. Don't consider these tools as a single one. Like if you are saying you know Jenkins and you know Docker, so try to implement a solution with both these tools, because in real time and in companies they basically create a workflow through all these tools. And the next question, real time question, it is definitely asked: how have you handled failed deployments? How have you handled failed deployments? So this is the one of the good question which is asked to check your real time knowledge. Interviewers generally ask this question. So it will definitely, as the question says, it will definitely depend on the project and the experience. Like how have you handled failed deployments? You can tell any story, like if there is was some deployment failing on production and you need to roll back that deployment, or you need to divert your traffic to another region. So accordingly you can create a scenario, and then you can speak out that scenario to your interviewer, so that he will be convinced that you have real time knowledge and you have definitely worked in these DevOps tools. Next question is, what have you been doing over the last 2 years, last 1 or 2 years? It is again one of the good question which interviewer asks to check your real time knowledge. So these questions you need to prepare first before going to the interview. Like what have been doing, you can say like you have been working on this so and so cloud infrastructure and the so and so DevOps tools you have been working upon. When you came to the project, these things were there, I worked on these and I automated these things. So this is how you can answer the question. Let's suppose if you have worked on AWS, then you can say like I'm maintaining AWS cloud infrastructure through CI/CD pipelines. As soon as there is a new hotfix or new release, you are creating a branch for that, and accordingly you are creating a build pipeline, and you are working in sprints, and on the basis of the like sprint you are creating pipelines, build pipelines and release pipelines. So this basically conveys to the interviewer like what exactly you have done, and you can give a brief overview like what exactly you have been doing from last 1 2 years, or if you are having experience 3 years 4 years, and accordingly you can answer. How do you deploy software and handle failed deployments? So for deploying software, you can like take example. You can give the name of any deployment tool which you are using. Let's suppose if you are working on Azure DevOps, then you can say you are deploying software and code changes through release pipelines only in Azure DevOps. Okay, an artifact, where you are storing artifact in Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps, if you are familiar with Azure DevOps, generally we store artifacts in Azure Artifacts feed or in Azure pipelines. If you are working in Jenkins, then you generally store artifacts in Nexus and other JFrog artifact repositories. Various repositories are there, and you fetch that artifact to deploy your software. And how do you handle failed deployments? This definitely depend on the real-time situation that have you worked. You can, again I will say, depict a scenario here that will definitely help you to crack the interview. And the next question, what's the next thing you would automate in your current workflow? So for automation, you can consider like you can make use of tools like PowerShell, or you can make use of ARM templates, maybe Ansible also. Ansible is a great answer for that. So, but be ready for the follow-up questions. If you say like you are thinking to automate, or you have done automation with PowerShell, or you have done automation with Ansible, then be ready with the follow-up questions. Multiple follow-up questions can be there, like he may also ask you to write the script. If you are saying that you have automated something so and so thing with PowerShell, you automated a workflow with PowerShell, then the interviewer may also ask you that you should follow-up questions can be there, like can you tell me the script, what parameters did you use, what for each loops did you use in a try catch blocks. So generate a scenario for you. Obviously in real time you will be working, so just grasp one or two scripts and try to change that script, try to play around with that script, so in that way you learn. So next question is, how do all DevOps tools work together? So as I told earlier, try to like don't think tools are working in an isolated form. Like don't learn Jenkins and then Git. Try to integrate both these tools. How will these tools integrate in real time world? So like as the question is, how do all DevOps tools work together? So then you can explain the workflow in this case. Like all DevOps tools like are dependent on each other. Our entire software development life cycle, entire production life cycle, entire release is dependent on these DevOps tools, which will be connected together, which will be integrated together. Like let's say there is a workflow, your code is checking into Git. Git is basically a version control system. Code is being checked into Git by developers, and as soon as there is a new code, we will fetch that code and we will start building that code in our local system. Once we test that code, build that code in the local system, then we will push that branch. Obviously that will be a test branch, not the master branch. We will be pushing that branch to remote GitHub. Remote, if you are using Subversion, then you will be doing in Subversion only. After that branch is pushed to remote, we will start creating a UAT release or a UAT build before that. After the code is finally stabilized and it is all approved by our manager, then that branch will be merged to master and we will trigger a production release. So we have sprints for that. We don't do it on a daily basis. Sprints are defined basically, week sprints, or some sprints maybe in months. So this is how you can answer this question, how do all DevOps tools work together? If something breaks in production, how do you know about it? This is again a real-time question to check your working knowledge and to check. You can give the like entire overview of your infrastructure and your project that you're working upon. Like if something breaks in production, how do you know about it? Obviously in your project there will be some monitoring mechanism, some alerting mechanism that will alert you as soon as there is a break. Let's say you will get a notification in your system, or let's say you will get a ticket in your ticketing tool. So accordingly you will get an alert and you will start working on that bug. You will notify other developers, other team members, so accordingly you can answer this question. And ninth question is describe the Linux boot process. So this question is basically obviously to check your working knowledge on Linux. Linux boot process, this you can study on your own. Like you can get a good idea from YouTube videos or some wiki or docs. So Linux basically follows a boot process. Like your first is like there are six six stages in Linux boot process. First is BIOS, then MBR, then grub, kernel, inet, run level. So these stages you can learn. Basic input output system, it initiates MBR initiates grub, grand unified bootloader, then your kernel starts, then initialization is done, and then finally run levels are there. This you can study on your own, that is not a big deal. So finally do a FizzBuzz coding test. So as a DevOps engineer, you should also know the coding part. You should have a basic knowledge on how coding works, how programs work. So you can do a FizzBuzz coding test. Just Google FizzBuzz coding test and you will get some questions on FizzBuzz. So yeah, this is how like you can prepare for a DevOps interview if you want. And these are the real-time questions which are generally asked by DevOps engineers. And don't first try to get a basic understanding of what is DevOps, try to get a basic understanding of the various DevOps tools, and then start implementing those tools. So yeah, that's it guys for now. Thank you for watching my video and thanks for supporting. Bye bye, see you.